Hello, all my dear friends. This is Maxine Taylor with the astrological overview for the month of January 2025. Now, on the 20th, we know that there's going to be an inauguration. And I'm going to explain to you when the action starts kicking in. And when I say the action, I mean um, the plan that those people who are in power this time will put or attempt to put into action. Okay. And it's already been told. It's not news, but a lot of people haven't been able to hear it. So, I've got the forecast, as I said, for this month, and I'm gonna kind of tiptoe into February because I'm calling this the calm before the storm. Um, so here we go. Um, as you know, the when we do a mundane chart, and by that I mean the chart of a business or a country, there are different interpretations of the houses in the zodiac than if it were our own birth chart. So I'm going to, as always, give you the meaning of each house that is tenanted by a planet and is going to get kicked into action to help you understand what's going on. Now, the two biggest things that are not going on now, in a manner of speaking, are Jupiter and Mars because they are both retrograde. Now, Jupiter brings blessings. Jupiter brings expansion. Jupiter is the greater benefic. Venus, the lesser benefic. And you know, I've said this before, if you've been on this site before, uh, the lesser benefic, less good, it rules money, beauty, art. It rules love. It rules love. It rules love. It rules love. Yes. So Jupiter is retrograde. Jupiter brings all kinds of expansion, and it can overdo a good thing. When I've done birth charts with strong Jupiter that is afflicted by another planet, I know to talk about sweet tooth and spending money and all that kind of stuff. And Venus as well, same deal. If one is good, two is better. I'm referring to anything chocolate. Okay, now let's get on with what I've got here, and I hope that this will be helpful. First of all, mm, I've got this written out very simply, but it's very powerful. I'm going to start with a couple of just simple steps that I'm seeing right now, the month of January. Um, the new moon, excuse me, I've jumped ahead of myself. The full moon, and on the full moon, that's when things come to a head. I'm sure most of you know that. It's like a violin string that is getting tightened more and more and more. And by the time it takes that last little turn, it tears up. Okay, that is kind of like a full moon. People get tense, they get upset, they overeat, they overdrink, they over whatever. In a mundane chart, it's a little bit different. And so I'm going to be going over all this stuff. All right. The full moon is on the 13th of this month. And you'll start feeling that in your own body, in your own life. Look at the people around you. The mundane interpretation of the third house, which is traditionally transportation, communication. So it involves traffic, the press, all kinds of traffic, cars, trucks, trains, airplanes. See what I'm saying? And if you think about what has been reported in the news lately, you can understand that. Okay, Mercury in that third house talks about communication, news, and reporters. These are the people who share the news with you. Some of them are very good, some of them perhaps not so good. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, okay. The mail and news in general, public opinion, traffic, short distance travel, books and newspapers, neighborhoods, different neighborhoods, schools, matters of public transportation. And so with the full moon on Mercury, if people have been on strike, say any type of business that deals with communication, correspondence, transportation, it's going to come to a head. Now you might say, well, there was some talk about people going on strike. I'm not going to name the companies. I don't want to put that out there. And that's true. This brings it to a head and hopefully resolves it for all the parties involved. That's asking a lot. There will probably be issues with traffic, accidents. I looked through the parking lot near my home at some of the cars, and some of them look like they've been driven out of a junkyard. People do not have the money to repair them. And so they're just sitting there with a headlight hanging off, that type of thing. And you would say, well, isn't that against the law? Yeah, probably so. I couldn't drive a car that was dented or bent or, otherwise demolished. But that's just me. Okay. So we're going to do a lot with communicating. And the news, the people who share the news, some of them are marvelous. Others of them just read it off a paper. And that does not mean that what they're sharing is true. In other words, use common sense is what I'm saying. Otherwise, it can be very exciting or very depressing. So that's Mercury is, of course, in the third house in the United States chart, and it is activated on the full moon. All right, let's keep on going here. 2 weeks later, we have a new moon. And just prior to the new moon, there's no energy. When I say just prior, I mean like 2 days before. Nothing's happening. Nothing. And Mercury and Mars are retrograde now. But I'm going to talk about them later on again, okay? Later on being in just a couple of minutes. Mars the planet of war, the planet that says I'll fight with or for the people I'm focused on. Mars says I do what I want, when I want, how I want, and there's no stopping me. When Mars is retrograde, it's like this. It resembles a raft in the middle of a swimming pool. Nothing is happening. No energy, no forward movement, just a lot of talking. Have you noticed that? People have no energy. However, Mars is going to go direct in February, um, which is going to be very, very interesting. Then Jupiter, the greater benefic, is retrograde, and we don't see the truth, the desire for honor and honesty. It has been retrograde. It too will go direct in February. And I think that's why I'm looking at this report as the calm before the storm, because some people who have had their eyes closed, who have perhaps just interpreted incorrectly some of the information that has been shared, are going to wake up. And hopefully it's not too late. Okay. All righty. Now, the new moon on the 29th. Well, let's start here. The sun, the giver of life, is in the 8th house of the United States chart, which rules the treasurer, debts, escrow, taxes, losses, death, and secrets. And in a mundane chart, the 8th house is not going to share their secrets at all. That doesn't mean that some people are aware of those secrets, but they involve money. And it's really weird to see the reaction people have when it comes to money. Okay. On the 11th, the sun moves into the 9th house, and we get out of private conversations and secrets and other people's money, all that kind of stuff. And when the sun enters the 11th house, the 9th house on the 11th, the 9th house rules the upper courts. Okay. Foreign travel, higher education, religion and the clergy, advertising, science, insurance, the Supreme Court, of course, philosophy, world trade, underline that, and universities because they teach higher education. Okay, the new moon is there. And unfortunately, I don't like this. It's sitting on the south node. The south node in a person's chart acts much differently than in a mundane chart. There can be losses when with the south node in a mundane chart. And once again, we're talking about the higher court, the upper court. We're also talking about long distance travel. We're talking about interaction between those of us who live here in the United States and those in other countries. And there's talk about deporting. And so there can be if I were an advisor, I'm not, and I would never want to be, I would say, look very closely at international trade, look very closely at foreign travel, about advertising, about our interaction with our neighbors in other countries, because there can be losses here. Now, the new moon will have already passed over the south node, but it's headed for the midheaven. The midheaven represents the party in power. Very much so, it represents the president, the reputation of the country. Let's see what else. The party in power, all of our leaders, actually, but the president. And so 1 week after taking after taking office, this particular lunation moves into the 10th house of the president. And that is when things will start moving forward. It's not that they're not going forward prior to that, but there can be a letting go of, we'll call it out with the old, in with the new. Now, Venus, the pink planet, is love. It's the lesser benefic, and it rules, it brings beauty, friendship, all the good stuff. It is in the 10th house of the party in power. Well, right now, and until the 20th, Venus is going to be in the 10th house, and that represents President Biden. On the 19th, okay, the day before the inauguration, it moves into the 11th house of Congress and congressmen and women, of course, legislation, the Treasury, city and county councils, friends, and stepchildren. Isn't that interesting? And so there can be, dare I say, good feelings among the Congress members. There can, because there is the number from each party is so close. This Venus can bring love, positive outlooks, cooperation. That's asking a lot. It really is. But Venus is Venus, which is wonderful. And it can, we may need Congress to step in if anything happens where with our either our friends or enemies in foreign countries. Okay. Now, page number 2. Mercury, good old Mercury. It's the chatterbox of the zodiac. It is not an action planet, it's a thinking planet and a communication planet. Okay, it's in the 7th house. Now, the 7th house is traditionally one-on-one relationships. In a mundane chart, it's international affairs, war, lawsuits, little old Mercury. Yeah. I can't read my own writing here, people. I'm so sorry. Contracts, the public. It rules war. It rules our open enemies. In other words, those people we know who are not on our team. It rules lawyers and the law. It rules politics. It rules marriage and divorce. And it rules the lower courts. Lots of communication. All talk, no action. Lots of communication. On the 8th, just a few days from now, Mercury moves into that secretive 8th house. And whatever we are told, just question it and let's see how it pans out. The 8th house is the treasurer, debts, escrows, taxes, losses, death, and secrets. Any planet in the 8th house, it's all secret. Okay. And Mercury, the planet of communication. Absolutely. On the 22nd, Mercury enters the 9th house. And this can bring conversations with our allies at a distance or with our enemies at a distance because it rules the upper courts, but it also, which I gave you all of this stuff, foreign travel. Pluto is out with the old and with the new. It's all or nothing. And it's a sticky wicket because you can absolutely mess up beautifully with Pluto because it requires all or nothing. And so we're dealing with people from afar who want control. Well, look at every leader in the world. Some of them are very charming and lovely. Others of them are not. And from our history, with the last time Trump was in office, he really spent more time with the ones who are not. And so there can be talk of a major transportation trade, a major travel ban or blessing, because remember, with Pluto, we don't know if it's all or nothing. And so any communication, even last minute communication, can be helpful. And that's what I hope. Absolutely. Okay, now look at here. Mars is the red planet. Remember, I talked about Mars is retrograde and it's sitting on Mercury. Well, I just talked about Mercury and the full moon. Full moon is on the 13th. Mars sits on Mercury, triggering major issues involving traffic, communication, news itself, news people, public opinion, traffic. Traffic, I mean, the weather is creating all kinds of issues. Newspapers and other reading material, neighborhood matters, schools, and of course, public transportation. Mercury is moving backwards into the second house of money, earnings, savings, finances, the stock exchange. There's Mars stirring things up. The banking industry, banks themselves, debts, excuse me, both personal and larger from the standpoint of the people and government. Jupiter, the greater benefic, sitting in the first house, keeping optimism alive. What I'm sharing now is that in the month of February, Mars and Jupiter are both going to go direct. And Mars is going to get off its raft in the pool, and we will absolutely find deep, perhaps anger at local traffic. This is not international traffic, it's local, with reporters, with the news. And I don't mean everybody in the news at all. Some of our news people are brilliant. Those are the ones I love to listen to. So when Jupiter goes direct, optimism abounds. So join me next month in February. Of course, it will be February. And we'll talk about that, because give Trump a week to get rolling. It's not that he won't get rolling, but there's more rolling to do. Now, some of you know that I want to live in a world of love, and I'm doing everything I know how to create it. And those of you who are my astrology students, who have been my astrology students as well, know that my last book, Secrets from the Womb, was given to me by a higher power and has changed my life and the lives of my students. I am looking for those people who feel the way I do. And I'm creating a one-day seminar here in Atlanta, unless it's pouring down rain or snowing, in which case it'll be on Zoom. And I'm going to be training people on how to put my book into action. The more people who let go of the programming that holds them prisoner, the more room we have for love. And so I'm a transformational astrologer. And if what I'm saying now has sound effects perked your ears up, please go to my website, get in touch with me. I'll explain everything about what I'm doing. This is something that was given to me. And again, I'm not taking any credit for writing that book, because it came from a higher power. I know I'm not alone in wanting a country, a world that's safe for ourselves, our families, our friends, in which darkness does not rule, in which light rules. You know what I'm saying. So if you are interested, just go to my website, shoot me a little email, and I will get back with you and share the program, give you the details. And if you are supposed to study with me, it's not astrology, it's beyond astrology. If you're supposed to work with me, We will both know it. Okay? So, my dear friends, till we meet again, come back in February so we can talk about Mars and Jupiter. Till then, may the stars shine brightly on you and yours. Bless you all.